it's working. Looks like it's working. Give me 1 second here to get to YouTube on my phone for a way to check the live stream. Give me 1 second here. Mine are always about warranties. I'm going live on YouTube for my final Guitar Channel broadcast. Alright, let's get to YouTube. On this phone, hello everybody. Welcome back to another live broadcast. I'd like to get it right into some information for those who are clicking on this after the fact. However, it doesn't actually work like that. Let's go to my your channel and see what's happening there. There it is, says live. Alright. I should be able to test out some instruments. Alright, sounds good. Okay. It's even an echo. Okay, so gotta get the phone shut off here. I'll get this a little bit out of the way. Perfect. Not off, but so I don't have to hear it as an echo. Alright, if you want to say anything, go to the live chat. And so before we get into anything, just some kind of this is a Hallmark broadcast for me. This is with this picture-in-picture, the black backdrop. That's all how I'm able to broadcast through my through my studio at my rented apartment. And I can still hear my phone there. Well, as some of you may know who've watched my recent live uploads from the van, I've taken a new job because this is, free for everybody and doesn't have to pay the bills. It'd be nice if it did, but it doesn't pay the bills. So I had to take a job, and I found a good job, finally, something I'm happy to do and capable to do, and that I feel pays me well. And that is delivering freight in a van across the country, meaning I spend a month or two across the road, out over the road, not a month or two, even up to 6 months at a time, out on the road, delivering freight back and forth between places and just staying in the van. So, which is equipped to do all that. So, that being said, it doesn't leave me much time to jam. I have equipment in the van, but it requires me to use data that I have on my cell phones that's not always available. A lot of times I'm in Canada, I don't get a good signal, and other times I just need to sleep, get an oil change on the van. there's not a lot of as much downtime as I thought with this job. So it leaves kind of this channel neglected, which I really apologize to everybody about. So that being said, I made a decision this year that if everything seemed to be going well after my first year, I guess I made this decision last year. If everything went well with my with the job over a year, then maybe it might make sense to abandon the apartment I have where I'm from in Rochester, New York. So that being said, I went ahead and did that. The apartment is empty. It's been always a long, hard decision. It's going to be hard driving away from here, knowing I don't have a place to actually call home. But it's kind of neat. It's kind of neat being out on the road too, like a touring musician. Although I don't play any gigs, wish I did. So, and I can do that if I got a loop setup going, or even like a one-man band show. But I bought this Eros looper, and it just turned out to have the learning curve is so high, it's stifling my creativity. So that just didn't work out so far. But either way, the apartment has been abandoned. This is my last day here. It's Friday. Got to get on the road. Perhaps Saturday, hopefully Monday a.m. I'll be on the road out of here. I still have some cleaning to do and only a few hours left in the day, so this broadcast will have to get done maybe in an hour, hour and a half, but I'll give myself a full hour as usual to ramble on about everything music that I can tell you. So that being said, it's the last broadcast with a nice picture-in-picture. My laptop doesn't do that. At least it doesn't do that as well. As a matter of fact, I have to use my cell phone, which has better quality, but it's a lot harder to use that. It's harder to get a stand to hold it, and it's just a real pain in the ass. And it's hard enough to set up to practice in the van. I have to make sure that the battery has enough juice to do it, because it's going to try to run my fridge all night. And sometimes it barely wants to do that. I use an inverter, and the inverter converts the power, and luckily everything like the laptop and my Spark amplifier work. So I got to hook up cables and get the amp out, and then if I get called on a load, I got to pack everything up really quick. So it's always kind of such an issue that sometimes I don't even have the gusto to unpack the guitar. It just sits there. And so, yeah, that's where my channel is. Not a lot left to, and forget about actually creating and editing a real video. Those are the best ones of all. As you can see, I put some work into some of my earlier videos, and, so much so they can take a week to make. And I never stayed on it enough to get a workflow going to and then maybe getting a small income out of it to invest in like better programs and making it easier. I never did any of that, so it's always a hard, tedious job to try to make any kind of videos, and so my channel has faltered and stalled because of that. And it's too bad, because I think I got some pretty helpful information for certain mindsets to just kind of get them over that initial hurdle of being able to noodle or copy songs, but not really know anything about music theory, not know the basics. So I guess let's get down to brass tacks now. What do I even want to teach? I think I'm going to go over basically the same old thing, which is, how to maybe I'll copy one of those Rick Beato ones that I think fly over beginners' heads about the basics of music theory, how to get started in it, and why don't we start there? And if I can, I'll go into modes. But let's start with the basics of music theory and see if we can go there. The next thing that's kind of telling me the voice in my head about what to start talking about is the fact that I've joined up with a great Yahoo. No, not Yahoo. Sorry, that was so old. Why did I think about that? A great Facebook group called Guitar Theory for Beginners, I think it's called. So I don't have the exact name. I really should. Guitar Theory for Beginners, something like that. And or music theory for guitarists. It could be that too. I don't know. But if well, probably both of those exist. Anyways, I'm on one of them, and there's just always a lot of great questions, mostly about modes, things about chord progressions, things sometimes that I can't answer, but a lot of neat questions on there, and a lot of it is about the basics of music theory. So let's get started there. Okay. So if I was going to teach somebody music theory that they were telling me, I've seen a couple things, I've read a couple things. Everything mentions this C major scale that I still don't get, and I don't even know why I would want to learn it. So let's go over that question first. Why would you want to learn music theory? The reason is it's going to help your intuition, right? Some people, and the people who say, I don't need music theory, and guitarist X didn't need music theory, to write all those great songs. Well, if they're writing great songs, then that's it. They don't need music theory. If they haven't written anything yet, I doubt they're being truthful. But also, some people are born with a better ear for music. You don't know, if they were, listening to music in their early childhood and picking up perfect pitch or something like that. And if they have that and not even realize it, they may be more intuitive to music than other people. So that's one reason why you might hear some people say you don't need music theory. What it will do, though, if you don't have that natural intuition, is it will help your intuition to start, being able to piece together things that sound musical. And music theory, though, you'll hear it, well, it's rules, but they're made to be broken. Well, that's because it's going to give you the basics, which, consider this, a lot of pop music is made out of just basic music theory, especially the bubblegum repetitive stuff that you've heard over and over on the top 40 stations. That's for sure. But if you want to go beyond that, you want to get into prog rock, or you want to eventually get to jazz, you're going to have to start with basic music theory, and also to be able to write things that have a little bit of interest and be able to explain what you did and how to add to those. Once you understand the basics of music theory, then you'll understand when you did something that's outside music theory. You might say, look, what are the rules for? I just did this and it sounded great. Well, you'll understand that if you did something outside of a basic rule of music theory, outside the major scale, perhaps there's still a way to handle it. You've modulated into a different key, and you'll know how to put a solo over that, or how to bridge the gap, or how to connect those chords better, just by knowing some more basics that you wouldn't really be able to. You could probably guess your way through, hear your way through. But I think that process is longer if you don't have the basics of music theory in your head. So that's why you want to learn this stuff. It can get you creating things, I think, a little quicker, a little faster, and so on. Because you're not just playing stuff that's always in the dark. And I was thinking to yourself, well, some people got a natural knack for putting a vocal melody over a chord. Some people don't. So that being said, especially when it comes to the emotion of modes, you're not going to understand modes until you got a grasp of theory. Are modes any big deal? They're pretty cool. They're definitely useful, but they're not the magic bullet to sounding like Al Di Meola or Steve Vai or you know Django Reinhardt. Basic music theory and modes won't do that. However, it will get you the ability to create some emotional, more emotional content than you would have if you didn't know that, because that's what modes are. Modes, you can think of modes as moods, which I think was probably the original term anyways, and it got morphed into modes, but they operate as modes of the major scale, but they're definitely moods. Good mood, bad mood, happy mood, sad mood, kind of actually is a better way to put it. So let's see if we can work our way to modes today, starting from the basics. So, if all that being said, now you say, okay, Mark, I want to know music theory, then you've convinced me, let's learn it. The basics of it. But I'm thinking about someone who really knows nothing. I mean nothing. So, your very first question should be, well, how many notes are there? I mean, look at this piano keyboard over here. You guys can't see it. Oh, you can a little bit. I mean, look at how many notes there are. Look at how many note choices there are on a guitar fretboard. You already know all that. You've seen a guitar before, so 6 strings by 24 frets, something like 144 notes. What are you supposed to do with all that? Sorry for all that noise. How do people come up with a way to organize 144 notes? They don't. There are only how many notes? Did you say 12? Very good answer. So your next question should be from there, why 12? How come there's only 12 notes? Let's check it out. Here's basically the 12 notes. Let's hear more than 12. We can do that with a slide. So we're going to divide each one. We're going to make 24 note scale. Sounds possible. That's why there's a 24 note system in other countries. It's a little bit cumbersome for what U.S. music attempts to do, so we only use 12 because it kind of sounds like each one of those is almost like just a slight variation of the note it came from. So, for example, here is an A note. Here's halfway through the A note. Or here is a G sharp, A flat. Sorry. That was the G sharp, A flat, the middle note. Sounds like there's a step there, which just creates a complexity that's almost insurmountable. It's hard enough as it is with 12. So what if there were more than 24? Let's hear that. I'm dividing. Here's one note, one step from, let's say, the note B to the note C. Put 5 notes in between there. Some of those notes kind of sounded the same, didn't they? So the more division you put into this octave, the same note, the frequency doubled. Everything else is between that frequency doubled. The more divisions you put into there, the more you lose your sense of steps. So if we go the opposite way and try to create less steps, let's make only 10. Let's make a 6-note scale. You can do that. 4-note scale, but it sounds like there's so it sounds like there's bits that could be possible in between those notes. So 12 has a nice sound to it that is not doesn't sound like it's doubling up any tones. It gives a nice even kind of like a nice flavor to every step, and the math works out good between the octaves. So that's why 12 notes has been chosen. And it stands to reason that 12 kind of works in other parts of life too. 12 months of the year, 12 hours on the face of a clock. Is that right? I mean, there's 24 hours in a day, but still that's a division of 12. So, yeah. I need to knock some distortion off of there, but it's probably not going to happen. Okay, so if you pick that up, there was a actually improvised, changed around version of a Tom Petty song that was modal, but that would be jumping way ahead, so let's not talk about it. Okay, so now we know why there's 12 notes in the fretboard. Makes a nice step, doesn't skip anything, and it doesn't overdo any of the steps. So 12 it is. Now, of those 12, you want to assign those 12 a function, and this functionality that you're assigning is called intervals. You could call this learning the intervals. So any note you start with is going to be called. Let's show you how to write this down and make a little map here for yourself. If you're new to this, remember this is for new people. A lot of people totally know this already, and just an object of your curiosity at this point. So anyways, R for root. Okay, so let's say if we're going to start on an open E string, the high one, E is our root. To the high E, which is 12 notes away. So anyways, our our first interval then from the root has a name and a sound. I'm going to play the second note against the root. Now I'm going to go back to the first one. So a lot of people would say that the first one sounds a little more dangerous, sounds a little bit more like something used in a movie score called Jaws. Oh yeah. So we're going to call that the flat 2. I mean, 'cause it's if the root is the 1, then this is the 2. So basically how it works is like this too, by the way. You have these intervals. They basically follow, out of the 12 notes, if you take 7 of them, they'll make a nice sounding scale. You leave out 5, you pick 12. They've given these 12. And why does that work? Because the math is really nice. There's just good math. See, like this is math that doesn't really go together. This is math that can divide by itself. I don't know if that was the right way to put it, but the math is good, and it's got a more less dissonant sound. This is a little bit unresolved. It's a little bit more consonant. We'll do it on the A string. Some Black Sabbath there. That's in Tom Sawyer by Rush. The world is. So anyways, the consonant version is given the regular number, the 2. So but since there's a note in between there, they've given it the flat 2. So you'll have a flat and then a regular number, and you'll see that repeated for the most part up the scale here. So we've got, and also these are your most normal steps. This is the most normal step, like we heard. As you can hear, it doesn't make a great sounding scale completely, but that's going in whole steps. They just sound like, it sounds very generic and very bland because you're only using whole steps. They sound good for a little while, but then you need a half step in there to break up the monotony. Anyways, that and this, they're the closest notes to the root. So that's my root right there. So we call those would be normal steps. So if the root is a 1, that's a 2, a flat 2, and that's a regular 2. Okay, let's move on from there. Now we've got some very, very important tones. This is going to be the most, probably as a beginner, the most important tones that you'll work with. And these are the thirds. Now after 2, we have 3. So we have the thirds. We have, once again, a flat 3 and a major 3. And those are... So as you can see, we have the kind of a similar thing happening here. When we choose the first version, it's kind of got an unsettled sound, and we've got the when we choose the basically 2 whole steps, we've got a nice even sound. We've got a whole step and a half step is our flat third. That's skipping 2 frets. You recognize that from the pentatonic scale. Okay, so you've got the threes there. Now we know what to do with them. Now, pretty soon we're going to get to chords, and when we get to chords, these two are going to be the big deal of any chord. Any chord with this one is minor. Any chord with this as the next note is major, because chords always skip a key, skip a note, or skip an interval set, the 2 and 2, and goes right to the 3. A chord is 1, 3, 5, and it can pick one of these threes to change itself. There's only one 5 it's going to pick, even though there's a choice of 3 5s, which we're going to see in a second. There's only one 5 that's going to be the rock solid companion to the root. But one of these is going to make it happy, one of these is going to make it sad. Let's move on. So the next one is going to be a 4. Now, the 4 is weird. The 4 doesn't have this flat 4, sharp 4. Because it in itself is kind of got a unique sound with the root. So here it is. It sounds very congruent with the root. It also, if you take away the thirds and just play that in place of the thirds, you've suspended your chord. Same with this 2. If you choose to eliminate both of these 3s and say, hey, let's forget about major and minor and just put one of these 2s in there, you've created a suspended 2 or a suspended 4 chord. Here's the sound of a suspended 4. Just trying to play some Police there. Major, here be a minor. This right here, flat third. Here's the root, flat third, major third. Hear how consonant they are. Major third, hear a dissonant kind of consonant, but there's more tension there on a minor chord. And then the suspended note. Now, we're going to skip one here and go to the 5. Hear how congruent that sounds? It's like the absolute companion to the root. And when you make it a chord, you hear that the 5 always leads to the 1. That's what they're talking about, a chord built off this root. So for example, a G. Always wants to lead to a C. So for example, we went to the 2, the second chord on the scale, and the 5 chord. To the 1 gets you back, wants you to go back home. Incidentally, speaking about going back home, this is, the 5 goes here. We're going to put a flat right there because the 5s work as the same way these do. So we'll talk about this one in a second. This is basically farthest from home you can get is this flat 5 right here, because there's between the root and the flat 5, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes. So if I put 5 notes on the other side, I'll write them all out here, I guess. Well, we're going to put 5. Yeah. So if I include this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll have the root again here. Let's see if that holds true. Okay, so, oh, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anyway, so this is the middle of the scale. So let's go to this one here, this flatted 5th. It's in between the 4th and the 5th. So if these two notes sound really good with the root, what do you suspect that middle one sounds like? So here we have the 1 and the 4. Here's the 1 and the 5. Here's that tritone. It's almost like this. The jaws. It's kind of like an ambulance sound. Something from Europe, right? That's the tritone. Now the interesting thing with this tritone, there's a lot of information with the tritone. And this is what I'm trying to do with all these explanations. These are these are the assignments of all these notes. You should try to memorize this, like hear them, play them, and get a your own explanation in your own words for what they are. So this tritone does a lot of unique little things. It creates that tension where if you hear about this. The dominant 7th chord. A few minutes ago we were going 2, 5, 1. That 5 chord naturally has this root flat 5th relationship in it. Here's that chord right here. A dominant 7th chord. As soon as you hear dominant, you can think this. It's got that flatted 7 in it, which is coming up in a little bit, and that creates, along with the major 3rd, a tritone interval that wants to resolve back. See, for example, if that's the G, here's the C. So it creates this, that's what these intervals do. They create movement in music, especially when you add a harmony. You play them in harmony, play both of them together. So anyways, that being said, that's your tritone. The tritone also makes a row on the guitar, a diagonal row. Like, so if I start on G here, I go down a fret, there's the C, but I'm going to the C sharp, so I'm making a little angle here. Well, that continues because there's the octave pattern. So we need a G, C sharp, G, C sharp. So it kind of follows in an angle here. Let me get this in the camera here. So it's, oh Lord. And then after you've completed those 4, you do have to skip a fret because of the difference between the top 4 strings and the bottom 2 strings. You'll know that when you tune the guitar, you have to take the G string and tune it from take the B string and fret the G string on the 4th fret instead of the 5th fret to get it right. So it's that tuning anomaly that doesn't let it shine through completely, but it's an angle across the fretboard. once you get to the bottom note, you can start, since both these strings are the same, you can start the diagonal row exactly above it. So for example, if I started down here, the same two notes as far as I could play them up the fretboard, starting from down low. Okay, so there's the fives, but with the fives, the five is such a powerful note. As we heard, it's so congruent to the one. Makes up that power chord we always hear about. A little bit of hometown music there, Foreigner. So the 5 is always so close to the 1. It's got a lot of gravity, so it actually gobbles up the 6 interval and calls it a sharp 5 versus a flat 6. It's more related to the 5 here, and it sounds like this. That was me playing the flat 5th and the sharp 5th, and the regular 5th. You can hear both of them have gravity towards that 5th. Now we've got a 6, a 1 and a 6. So this interval comes up later when you're building, chords for a country song or starting to get interesting, knowing a few different things. So don't worry too much about the 6 right now, but here it is. Here's that 6th. Something like that, harmonized up the neck. Anyways, here's a 6-9 chord versus like a regular D. A little more dreamy, relaxed, jazzy. So from there we have the flat 7th and the 7th. The flat 7 is basically like this. Here you got your root. Here's your 5. Now here's your root. So we could play like just a root 5 root power chord. Or we could throw that 5th away and just play this is going to sound more elegant. This is going to sound a little bit more honky-tonk. So it's when you want to add another note to a chord, you add it in the 7th. Doesn't have to be. You can add in the 6th and stuff like that. But generally speaking, you have triads, root 3, 5, and then you have 7th chords when you want to talk about thicker chords, chords with more information, and or jazz chords. So here you go. So hear how that's nice, elegant sounding A chord. Now let's flat that 7. There's a lot of versatility there. It's got its own unique sound. A little bit more party-ish, move around, have some fun. Where the putting in the regular seventh is a little bit more relaxed, at ease, formal. So, just some ideas. So they kind of like give you musical ideas. That's what these intervals do. So, there's a quick assignment of all your intervals. That's what you want to do. Get familiar with your intervals and how they react in chords. And you've come a long way in using knowing your music theory. But, however, if that's a lot of information and you just too much to absorb, start here. Just go to the thirds, and that's all you need to know. These are all going to become obvious to you later on. I mean, you've heard a power chord a million times, so you already know the fifth. You've got an idea of that four in there, the suspended. So that's kind of like you can hear a suspended chord when it's happening. The sixth and the seventh aren't going to come up till you're trying to learn, jazz stuff where you should already have a good idea about this anyway. So you don't have to worry about that. Sharp fifth is hardly ever coming up except for, your most advanced prog rock or your jazz, so you don't have to worry about that. The tritone comes up, but mostly with jazz, so you don't have to worry about that. Just basically, this is going to come up all the time. You always know you already know your regular fifth. What flavor is the chord, major or minor? That's going to be the probably biggest question you always are up against when you're listening, figuring out. Jamming with other musicians. Are they minor chords or major chords? On and on. So, and the two, well, you already know that because it's easy. So, let's move on from there. So we know intervals now. Let's just say we do. So, they break these intervals out. Let's just highlight the whole numbers here and forget the flats. So root 2, 3, 4. Let's take note of that. 5. Skip a note 6. Skip a note 7. And we're back to the root. Now, if I shade in, I'm even going to make them a little taller here. If I shade in these not functioning notes, do you notice an instrument? If you said piano, hey, that looks just like my piano. Then, and if it didn't look like a piano, then and you don't have one, good idea to go get one. Simple keyboard is $20 on Craigslist. That's how I got mine back there. And along with a more expensive one now that's to plug into the laptop. But anyways, what we got here is the 2 notes and 3, just like the 2 black keys and the 3 black keys over there on the keyboard. So, and basically the white keys then are following the standard major scale pattern of root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There is no minor third in that scale. That's why the white keys exist, because they're a C major scale, because they start on that note as a C note, not just a root. The root is C, because that's what that note is tuned to. Then it goes skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note. And this is how it would repeat with confusion if you separated it here and made both of these parts the exact same. For example, that, well, then it would kind of just not make any sense, because each side is the same. Which note is which? You'd have C, D, E, F, G, A. You'd never know which group you're dealing with, but if you split it into 2 groups, the group with the 3 white keys and 2 black keys, or the group with the 4 white keys and 3 black keys, then you can see a difference, and you can always know, oh yeah, okay, so that's C, D, E. You can call it CD, and then F gab. So in the beginning, that's the way I learned it. Call it F gab because that's F, G, A, B, and this was CD for C, D, E. CD. So that helps you with your do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, which is exactly what that is from grade school. And how does this key work? Well, we played the whole tone earlier, and it was very bland and boring because all it was simple whole steps. Pretty bland, has some uses somewhere, but not in a whole lot of pop music that we like, and classic rock and whatever, so metal. So what do we, I'm sure you can find obscure examples, but what do we like? We like... Hold on a second. Keys happen because there's that half step, and then between the seventh and the root is another half step. So there's two half steps. And those two half steps are genius when it comes to guitar. Those really make everything happen. I'm going to put that down for a second, but all right, what do we want to do next? So, got an idea about kind of scales. What you want to do next is learn to draw a guitar fretboard on a graph paper very quickly. So, we don't really know where 24 frets is. You could go, say, oh, well, it's 6 inches here. So, if we start at the 1, there... Then we've got up to 6 inches. We're probably good right there. But we don't know for sure, so here's what we're going to do. There's 3 notes and 3 notes. And I want this to be the nut, not the butt end, or the high end. So I'm going to make that nice and thick. And then I'm going to write E in capital A, D, G, capital B, and lowercase e for that top E. We want to know where to make the end here, but this is how I do it instead of trying to count 24. Skip 2 and then lay in 4 dots on the center line there. So, because then this won't get in the way of anything you write down, and it'll look just like a guitar fretboard. When you make these 4 dots, make sure you only skip 1 square in between them. So you make 4 dots. Now we're going to skip 2 squares. And we're going to take that line and we're going to skip a line and go down here. We're going to do the same thing the other way. If we skipped 2, skip a line, go up here. And that should look familiar. There's your octave point on the guitar. Just the same way we skip 2 here, we're going to skip 2 here, and we're going to go like this. 1. We're going to make 4 again. And look, that wasn't enough. So if we guessed there, we would have been cutting ourselves building a Fender style fretboard, but we want to build an Ibanez style fretboard, so we're going to continue. We're going to skip 2 more boxes there. Then we're going to draw in our octave pattern, so we know we're going up right there. So there's our skip 2. Make our octave by skipping 1 line. Great. Now, all we have to do is connect some lines. Now it's really quick. You just draw your line this way. You can even freehand that if you want. Draw your line this way. and you've got yourself a handy dandy guitar fretboard. So remember I said that those half steps come in handy on the guitar fretboard. And since we're dealing with a piano here, we're going to take our root 2, 3, 4 and give them note names. So let's say that we're starting with C. C is always the example scale. Rick Beato mentioned the other day was the college scale, and the reason being is because it's basically you can visualize it on a piano keyboard. So it's like the easiest key to see and place to get a visual on the stepwise motion. So C, D, E, and also because this is the real reason it uses all whole notes. Any other combination grabs in a black key, which is a sharp and flat. So in other words, C sharp, D flat, D sharp, E flat. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And while we're at it, what you could do above your interval row is go C, put a little line there, D, put an angular line there, E. Same thing, F, 3 and 4, E and F, G, A, B, with that half and half in between them. And you're going to take the note on this side, put it on top, and the note there, and put it on bottom for C sharp, D flat, D sharp, E flat, F sharp, G flat, G sharp, A flat, A sharp, B flat. And that gives you all the sharps and flats in the key of C, which correspond with all the black keys. So you can have that, oh, I see how a piano works now moment. So C, D, E, F, G, A. Now let's take note and then back to C. One of the most important things about this, as far as our guitar's fretboard is concerned, is this little group of E, F, and B and C. Let's take a look. Now before we put anything on this guitar fretboard, let's just draw out a pattern here. I'm going to show you a little secret. Let's take a 4-note box like that. And what if I told you that you can find anywhere on the guitar a B and C, and there's always going to be an E and an F underneath it. So in other words, what are the intervals here? In our case here, C is the root, E is the, let's count so you guys can get familiar with it, so I'll just tell you. What's E? Let's see. C, D, E. 1, 2, 3. It's the third interval. F is the 4. Yep, 3 and 4. Okay, we're on to something here. So we would have root 3, 4. What comes just before the root? The 7. Now, you might wonder how, thinking that, boy, you pulled that up fast. I'll never be able to do that. But once you've realized that you've accepted this information as true, and so you begin applying it musically every day, you're kind of noodling around, you're trying to memorize it on your fretboard, whatever the case may be, it just becomes ingrained. 7, R, 3, 4. Or if in the case of the C major scale, B, C, E, F. So this is static, by the way. This never changes. This square always has the root. If you find the root note to a pop song that's in basically the number 1 of a major key, the root's always here. The major third is always there. The 4th is always right there, and the 7th is always right there. It never changes. It can't change. 7 is the note just before the root. 3 is just before 4. Okay. So what about the rest of these? We still need, let's see, we've got 4. Scales are 7 notes. So we need only 3 more notes, and where are they? And do they stack up nice and neatly so I can very easily memorize my fretboard? Well, lucky you, yes they do. So B, C, E, and F. What are we missing? We're missing A, D, and G. Because if we had A, D, and G, we would have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So where are they? What if I told you that all you gotta do is put 2 notes in front, 2 notes in back, then you can go C, D, and what comes before E? D. You say, wait a minute, Mark, that's the same exact note. Well, remember, we only needed 3, right? And we've got 4 squares, so one of them needed to be doubled up. Let's take another look at something. Here we have a D, then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes, and a string on top, and we have a D. Let's take a look at where we already know that. Here's a D open string. Here's where we tune a D at the 5th fret of the A string. Same exact note. And that's the tuning. That's where we go to tune the guitar. So anyways, unless you're once again at between G and B, then you only use 4 frets. So where's the A? A is always before B, right? There's easy to remember. A, B, C, D, E, F. The only outlier is G. Now, incidentally, this is just good to know as a side note, but it doesn't really come into play when you use this to navigate your guitar fretboard. But G is always right here above the C, unless you're in between the string shift, which is that G note, G string, B string thing, and the A is always down here. Just like on your open tuning, you have an E note and then an A note, and A string is E is the first, A is the second string. If you're fretting a G at the 3rd fret, the C is underneath it at the 3rd fret. So it kind of makes like a little leg off the side here. But you don't really need to know that exactly right now. Let's just concentrate on this square. One thing to know about the square of notes, if you ever feel lost, like, okay, I can play in this square of notes for a solo, but gee, where's the next square? It's always following in this direction, always at a diagonal. So in other words, if I draw another square right here, now this is not connected to that at all. We just got cluttered there. It stands to reason that there's the octave pattern on the guitar. You should know your octave, which is, let's take this 7 right here. If we go down 1, 2 strings and then over 1, 2 frets, we have another 7. So 7, 4. If that's 7, 4, then that's got to be root. I'm getting tired. Root and 3. And hot, too. I don't think I can open the windows in here. Anyways, 7, 4, 7 root, 3, 4. 7 root, 3, 4. It's going to keep on. If you're ever in that box, you're always connected to that box. Unless you're at the string shift area at the bottom pair of strings. Then you have to skip over. And that's part of the reason this never jumped out at you. So think about how fast you can play in the box. If you connect that with the other notes, you can get around reasonably quick. But, well, later we're going to see how pentatonics even connect, and the chord tones all connect into this box idea. So let's say I wanted to play in a key. This will eventually work for even modes too, but let's just work with the standard key. So in our example here, we talked about the whole notes being we talked about this being static. This is always the root right here. And in our example of C, it's always the whole notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So let's go with that. Let's go with the C major scale. And how could we instantly find the C major scale and know where it is across the fretboard? Well, we should have memorized our E string. We know it's E, F, G, A, B and C are there, D, E. And if you went, hey, there's the E, well, you'd be right. So, actually, what we want is the BC. So we want to try to find a BCEF square. So there must be basically, right here, BCEF. Now this is technically a square too, but you'll see it goes off the fretboard. We're going to discuss that in a minute. Let's notice that this square here that we've penciled in not only contains B, C, E, F, but it's on the let's call this like the 1 and 2 strings, then the 3 and 4 strings, and the 5 and 6 strings. This row is called our, we'll just call it our unbroken row. So we know that the square always connects to itself with that little tritone row in the middle. So if that's true, we must have a B and an F. Right there. And we should have a C and an E right there. Very good. Stretch out my leg here. All right. So we need to do that one more time, but like we've talked about, so we're what I was talking about earlier, by the way, when I wrote all this out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is grouping. So here we're grouping 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6 to make one row this way. So we've got B, C, E, F. Okay. So, well, that's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes down the fretboard. How do we get to 12 notes to cover everything? Well, the easy thing is same as is above, so is below. And look, there's E, F. So if there was a magical B string on your guitar, you'd have B, C, E, F right there. But there is no magic B string, so you have what we're going to call a half box right there. So now what we're dealing with, where we use nice even, we use the outside pairs, then the middle pair. Here we have a half box. We're going to use a pair here, a pair here, and then we'll just put a dot over there. Okay, so that being said, that must mean that there's a BF, BF. And put the CE right there to make our BCEF. Now here's another thing with this row here is just this one's filled with broken squares. get used to knowing that this is a square, but it's just busted right here. So we got B, C, E, F, and that's where guitar gets a little tricky in between those boxes. So here we want to connect to the corner to finish up our E string here. So we've got E and F. No, we got B and C, sorry. Okay. So now we got to go back to the top here because the same way with this one, as is above, so is below. So same thing here. We've got a small one on top. We've got to trade for a large one. Now this should look familiar. B, C, E, F. Where have you seen that before? I'll give you a second. If you said right over here, you got it right. We are now an octave across the fretboard. You don't need to learn anything more. You've just uncovered a quick and easy way to get across your fretboard, because after this it repeats the exact same thing an octave higher one more time. But you might say, Mark, there's more to the scales than these squares. Where's the rest of the notes? Well, we only need 3 notes, so stay tuned. We'll plug them in. As a matter of fact, it follows the same logic that this one did right here with the A, D, D, G. So Adam's dog, or G, D, D, A. Gosh darn it, don't ask. How was your day? So, yeah, look, there's the A. Well, guess what would be right here? A D. We'll go like this. So for every one of these squares, I'm going to write in front of it and behind it. I'm going to put a D, G. We're going to put an A, D, and a D, G. A, D, D, G. And if we do that all over the fretboard, A, D, D, G, D, G, because D would be on the non-existent string. This should be A, D, and look, A, D, D, G, after the F. So anyways, you fill all that out and you do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. And that's what it's all about. So, as you can see here, screwed something up here. What comes before A? G. Comes before D? C. And so disregard that square right there, although that'll work for that square. Alright. Now, earlier I was going to say, when we made this broken box here, I was wondering if anybody picked up on that's that little nuanced portion of the what you might have referred to as the Aeolian scale. So in other words, we've basically got everything filled out here. And yeah, you've got the everything filled out. B, C, E, F. And you've completed your major scale across the fretboard. There's a couple things you want to know. There are pentatonic scales, and there's 3 of them hidden within this matrix. 2 of them overlap each other. Okay, now when it comes to pentatonic, you can start with the scale. 1 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 flat 3 1 flat 3, and basically play it and all its matching counterparts from any one of these areas. We call this one the Dorian. This one is the Phrygian because it starts the minor. Oh, this is minor, and this is major. You can. I didn't make that very small. If you make it small and have good differentiation, you'll just know major and minor. But anyways, to try to be quick here, you got these major and minor pentatonic patterns. So if I always start on this root, look at that. F in the key of C makes a major chord. D in the key of C makes a minor chord. How's that so? It's because of the thirds. D and C. I'm sorry, A and C. A makes a minor chord, C makes a major chord. So it's always major and minor. We can get into modes through using the pentatonic scale, but that gets a little bit confusing fast. I'll show you another way. First of all, you want to get your modes in musical order. So, first of all, well, actually, let's get them in scale order. Write these notes down. Scale order. Scale order. So you have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Or root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if you play, basically the chord from here and then play the melody using all these notes, it's going to sound like Ionian. This one will sound like Dorian. Oh, we want to put major, minor, minor. We'll put a little star there. Major, major. Whoops, I screwed something up there. Major, major. This one is minor. This one is DIM for diminished. So you want to give them a name, Ionian, and give them, you want to memorize this order as you go up the scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's Ionian, Dorian. Also equate them with this. Ionian is a major mode. Dorian is a sad mode. Phrygian, I'm probably not going to spell it right, is a sad mode. Then we have Lydian, is a happy one. Mixolydian is a real happy one. Aeolian is minor. And then you have Locrian. So finally we want to give those just a little one box name. So we use an I, a D, a P, an L, an M. Whoa. For Mixolydian, an A for Aeolian, and Locrian repeats itself, but we're going to use an L with a little X there. So we know when it's Locrian. Okay, so there's your scale order. This is important to know so you can work them structurally from your fretboard. You can kind of do your locating using the scale order, but you need an emotional order as well. So we're going to actually put mood order. And that works like this. You've got 3 happy major, and you've got 3 sad minor. Now that's 3 and 3 makes 6. Well, what about our 7th? Shouldn't we have 7 modes for 7 notes? And didn't we have 7 names over there? Yes, and one of them is the we're going to call it the enigmatic, because it doesn't resolve to itself and never sounds resolved unless you take it and go back to the very first mode of the major scale. Then it's where it wants to pull itself to. So because it's used very rarely, it's hard to make music with it, and you'll only find it primarily in like jazz purposes. Don't worry about it. Just let it be what it is, and makes it easier to memorize 3 and 3. So here we go. What we want to do is kind of consider that we have we have 3 happy, we have a brighter, we have a regular, like a neutral, and then we have kind of like a twisted happy. And when it comes to sad, you have a kind of a melancholic sad, with like sad, but there's like light at the end of the tunnel. Here we have just normal neutral sad. Everything's sad, nothing's happy, nothing's too bad. And then here you just have Armageddon. You have things are going wonky with this one, Egyptian sounding, maybe Latin sounding. You can put your own kind of twist on it. Let's give them their names, okay? You have 3 happy modes. Well, first of all, so in the middle you have your natural, and I'm even going to call them neutral modes. They're right in the middle, and they are Ionian. And I'm just going to put major, because when you hear major scale, you're playing C major, A major, D major. They're talking about the major scale. It's actually a mode, and it's called Ionian. But that is the standard happy mode. The standard sad mode is called Aeolian. That is the natural minor. That's where that word natural comes from. If you hear someone saying, oh, the natural minor, which minor? The natural minor. It's because it's the normal, balanced mood that sits in between the other extreme moods. See how that makes sense? So natural minor, you can even call this natural major. But don't tell them I told you so. Alright, so what's this one here? We have, as a brighter, happier, we have Lydian. And then we have Mixolydian. So Lydian, lighter, dreamy. If you're talking about a daydream, you're daydreaming about a girl. You're talking about angels. You're talking about, flying through a blue dream. Those are Lydian types of emotions, and a lot of those songs that talk about that have a Lydian sense. I believe Rush by Free Will by Rush is talking about spiritual stuff, and that has a Lydian kind of go-to sound to it. And that Tom Petty song I was doing earlier, Here comes my girl. At first he's daydreaming about his girl, and he's in Lydian, and then he switches over to that key's major Ionian for the, here comes my girl, for the actual chorus of the song. When he wants to bring you back to the main idea and kind of give you a grounded sense, before it takes off in Lydian, back in Lydian, he goes in Ionian. It's a real genius there. Rest in peace, Tom Petty. Okay, Aeolian, here we have Phrygian as your extreme kind of sad scale, and then on a lighter side we have Dorian. This is your light at the end of the tunnel. If you want to be a little different, give your song a little twist, these are the modes you're going to use. A lot of them, probably the least amount, use this. Some Metallica and some stuff that wants to have that otherworldly sound, but it's going to kind of tend to sound Latin or Middle Eastern, perhaps. I don't know, maybe just kind of, listen to that scale for yourself. But I'm going to show you how to listen to these scales. Now, we've given them a mood order. We know how to choose a mode now, right? Because we have a mood that we can replicate. You can start practicing based on like, oh, okay, I want to hear how this Mixolydian sounds a little bit more twisted than Ionian. Let's put on a Mixolydian backing track and jam to it. I'll show you how to do that in a second. You find it using your scale order, and I'll show you how that's very easy on the guitar. But what I want to do next, though, is kind of show you how. Let's get back to where I was with that fretboard. Show you how a common misunderstanding with modes. A very technical way to explain modes, and a very simple way to explain modes is to say, oh yeah, it's the kind of use the scale order. If I want to get to a Dorian scale, it's the do re. It's the second note of the scale. So then they tell you, okay, start on the second note. And that sounds different than. I played it in 2 octaves there. Let's go back to Dorian. I don't know about you, but if your ear is trained, you can hear a little difference to that, but you say, so what? And then who makes a song with just with a scale that ascends or descends? Nobody does that. So it's very hard to understand modes when you get this technical information. So what's the problem there? Well, they're giving you, that's kind of like for melodies. If I was making had some chords, and I wanted a Dorian melody, I might think, I started on D, I kept on bringing the passage back to D, and accentuated that D as like the center or the go-to note, so I made a D melody. But that still doesn't really give you that modal sound, and it doesn't tell you how to jam all over your fretboard in a mode. So let me let you hear this, though. This is more of a musical way to understand, and so you can't really see what's going on here, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play a chord. I'm going to play a happy chord. It's a major chord. And I'm going to use the white keys as my my solo. I'm going to play a little rhythm here. And you can do this too for yourself. So you play a little rhythm with your left hand. hear how that all tied together. It all sounded pretty standard happy. I think it was. Kind of like a happy birthday thing, right? So it all makes so you can hear like, okay, yeah, that's pretty regular, pretty standard, right? Now, what if I play all those white keys again, but what if they could they sound different, the white keys? I mean, they're all the same notes. Did the melody part sound different? That's what you should listen to when you do this. Let the chord happen, but concentrate on your melody, your noodling, and make it so that your melody starts and tries to end, or keep going back to the first note of the chord you're playing. And I don't know about you, but suddenly those same exact white keys, the same exact palette of keys, the same scale, the same do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, sounded different. What did I do? I didn't change those notes or all the. It's all the same notes. And you can hear when you just noodle around, it just kind of doesn't really jump out at you. But as soon as you have that chord. You can make the melody sound totally the same scale sound totally different by changing the chord, because the mode is coming from the chord. Your ear is comparing all those melody notes that you play to the chord that you're playing. So you can almost think of the most important part of this modal hoo-ha that you're hearing about is what the background band is doing. They're going to change your scale into that mode. It's the bass player, it's the keyboard player, it's the notes that they're choosing as the backdrop, the basic framework that's going to make the mode. I have to explain this every day on that. Every time someone comes to that Facebook group fresh, and it's like, I still don't get modes. Like, I can't understand this modal stuff. Well, that's what that mode stuff is. I gotta move my van. But hold on a second here. Sorry, everybody, give me a second. But try to absorb what I'm telling you on this mode stuff. All right, didn't have to move it, and was good to get a little walk around, wake me up a bit. So, it's the chord that makes the mode. Now we know that. It's the background. So we don't have to worry so much about trying to create modes. We just have to know what scale to lock into to create these modes. So, for example, if I wanted to, you've got a scale will develop a choice. So if we're in C, you'll get C Ionian, because C is the Do, C is the 1. You get D Dorian, E Phrygian, F Lydian, G Mixolydian, and A Aeolian, and B Locrian. You just have to worry that you're playing the C major scale. Let the chords in the background, let the bass player jam on the 2 chord or the low D while the piano player plays the 2 chord primarily, and you'll have a Dorian sound. All you're doing is concentrating on the C major scale. So much easier. So easy. It's not even funny. That being said, let's go over how to mount this anytime, anywhere on the fretboard then. So basically, let's say someone said D Dorian, or let's say they said G Dorian, and we're like, oh man, but that one's not in C, so that could be kind of, I think I'm lost again. You're not. It's very easy. I'm going to show you the way right now. We already went over that the basic palette or makeup of the fretboard is this square of notes with the 2 notes on each end. Okay. Write down your mode order in these boxes. This is very cool, believe it or not. This mode order never changes. Since this is always the 1, that's always the 2, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7. Okay? So by the same token, what will change in these boxes is the note names, but we don't even need to know that. Let me show you something here. You could write in one of these boxes somewhere on your graph paper, I for Ionian, D for Dorian, just like we did in that mode order page. We should have wrote down, yeah, see how we did I, D, P, L, M. You got to memorize those. And everything disappeared. Magic graph paper. Okay. Ionian, Dorian, because as you see here, 2 and 2, it's always the same. It's the one where, oh, that's that Brocephus. And I want to alienate some of my audience by mentioning a channel, Godless Engineer. It's got a nice, funny sidekick there, but it's an atheist channel, and I know that will turn some of you off, so just never mind. Never mind that I said that. But this here is the way. Okay, so I, D, P, because it's Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, because that's the order, right? Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. We'll put an X there. So, this is how this works. All you need to do is mount the corresponding mode box to the note on your guitar fretboard. So if someone says, for example, and we'll use the top 2 strings, the E and the A string. So we have E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and we also want to know A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Okay, so someone says, hey you, let's jam in G mixolydian. You're like, oh, I don't know if I can handle G. Wait a minute, this shit's easy. G mixolydian, well, gee, there's the M, so my scale must be just like this. Notice we circled all the whole notes because G mixolydian is actually in the key of C. And right there you would have the beginning of your scale. Now, remember, you've got pentatonic boxes, so whenever you see the box, this is why we use the top two strings. Whenever you use the box, and you can get it to mount on the top strings like that, you're in what you should know is the Aeolian scale. Now, you should say, hey, right there, well, I thought you said, you just said mixolydian. Now we're talking Aeolian. You're confusing the shit out of me. What the hell? Well, that's because these boxes get their name by the note that they start on, but that doesn't matter if the band and the bass player is hitting G, going back to G, his line is low G, and the keyboard player is playing that dominant 7th chord, which is the notorious 5 chord. It has that flatted 7th in it. Go back to that interval stuff in the beginning of the video to know that. And so they're playing that special G chord. Then it doesn't matter that the scale starts on that note. You're not even probably going to go to that note. Maybe you'll just go right down here, grab this note to keep starting or ending your line. If it gets low, down there, G, right? G. And then you have all the rest of your fancy jazz right there. Yep, there you go. G, A, C, D. Yep, that's your pentatonic. If you look right there, the core of that, take away the B and the F in all instances of it, and you have your pentatonic scale. You see your pentatonic scale is a framework for your Aeolian scale. Okay? Now, let's say you just so happen to find your note down here. Someone said, hey, let's play F Lydian. So you found your note, you find the F note on the 4th string, because you just happen to know that, and you got your box right there. Well, this box also happens to be a bit of an expanded bit of a pentatonic scale. Let me draw the pentatonic shape real quick, and then we'll fill it in. Let's see if it fills in with all whole notes. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, and we know the pentatonic is there, but there's also that framework, so A, B, C, or that square follows its pattern there, so B, C, E, F squares right there, and D. And you see how you can, without much thought, build your entire palette of where to play all those notes to keep going back to that F, or keep going back to that G, or keep going back to the E or D or whatever you chose there. And let's do it again, only this time someone said G sharp. G sharp Phrygian. G sharp Phrygian. Guys, I think I can play it. I think I can. Oh shit. G sharp Phrygian mode. Got me scared shitless here. These guys are gonna prove me wrong. Well, here's my G sharp. Right in between my G and my A, there's my G sharp. What do we say? Phrygian? 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 Oh, shit. Oh, god damn. Let's see. Let me see if I remember what Mark said that day. He said Locrian, Ionian, Phrygian is the third, and Lydian's the fourth. So that's my third mode. Oh, how about the bottom of the square? Let's see, I got that bottom square there. What do I do with the bottom square? What do I do with the bottom square? Oh, Lord. Well, I think there's a square here. Mark said these were all pentatonic scales. I don't think he was right. I think that motherfucker lied to me. I'll kick his damn ass if I ever find him embarrassing me in front of my guitar friends here. Wait a minute, we got that square at the bottom here with a G sharp right here on the Phrygian. Locrian. That's Lydian. There's Locrian. It's Ionian. And we don't want to fill in note names because that would be kind of complicated. I don't know all the notes of G sharp, and I don't really care to because all I need to know is where they exist. And so I just know I've got my, you can call this your LIPL scale. And yeah, so there you go. What's before Locrian? Aeolian. What's before Phrygian? Dorian. What's after Ionian? Dorian. What's after Mixolydian? So Ionian was D, DM, and A. And don't get this confused with your DG. It just so happens that the A note is Aeolian and the D note is Dorian, but none of the other ones line up like, should be Gixolydian, but it's Mixolydian, It's like somebody did this just to throw the beginners off. Keep everybody from being able to play unless you figure out the geometry for yourself. So anyways, that would probably be a G there, an M there for Mixolydian. And after Mixolydian comes Aeolian. Okay, so where are our pentatonic scales? Is there a pentatonic scale? Yeah, look at that. So you could basically, if you got tired of adding in those notes, or you didn't think they sounded good, you could just go pentatonic right there. You could also go pentatonic right here, and you'd still be playing. I don't want to work. Still be playing all notes within the scale. You could go pentatonic here. And all the corresponding pentatonics down the row there. Or you could even go way up here. We're about to find where's our square up here. So let's see. We got D is always Aeolian D. So that must be B, C, E, F. We could have also found that by going here, making our broken box, connecting at the corner, because they always connect at the corner, which is our new box. However, we'll make this dotted because it's off there's no string there. We're at the high E string there, which is B, C, repeats the low E string. And that's how we find that box. Once we get our angle all the way down here, it's always as is below, so is above, or as is above, so is below. Same here. See that? Box, box. And that when we got the box on the 5th and 6th string, we know we have the what we call the Aeolian shape. This is called the Dorian shape. Call this one the Phrygian shape. It's just a handy way to call them that. And it doesn't really have to be the Dorian shape because this is D for Dorian. And this note is L for Locrian. It's the lighter. This one is P and M for Phrygian and Mixolydian. This is the darker. If you considered, you can get all the. That's another way you could do it this square box way, or you could just think of your 3 pentatonic shapes and get all the modes that you want to. You could get Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian this way. With this root here and that root there, using that scale shape, your Phrygian, they call it Phrygian shape because they're using the minor on this side, but it's actually the Phrygian Mixolydian shape. They call this one the Dorian shape. You might recognize it because it's got these notes too on it. They call it the Dorian shape because that's the minor side, so they just go with the minor, but it's the Dorian Lydian. It's the lighter. Remember our mood order had the Dorian and Lydian on the happy side, Mixolydian and Phrygian on the heavier side. So balance in the middle's Ionian, Aeolian, your major scale, your natural minor. Like, for example, C major, A minor. Which reminds me about something I got to tell you about. I forgot to tell you back when I was teaching you on the piano about modes. But let me finish this up here. So right here we've got the Aeolian, and that stands to reason that that's the Ionian. Your natural pentatonic. Oops, it would actually be that note, not that note, but it doesn't really matter. You just need to know that basic pentatonic shape, that there's 3 pentatonic shapes in the major scale, and that's where they're coming from. That's what they're all about. So, speaking of natural major, in the C major scale, A minor, C major, you've heard that before. Well, when I was playing you those modal examples, that's what I chose. I chose C major and A minor, and an interesting thing about it that I wanted to tell you is the C major chord. We start with a 1. We've chosen C, so that's C. We skip the 2s, and we go to a 3. We don't want a minor 3. We want a major 3 because it's the white keys. Then we want a 5. We've got 4, flat 5, 5. You can hear how they read together better than, say, or we've made up our major C chord. Now that's C, E, G, C, E, G. For our second example that totally changed the flavor of all the same white keys, we had A, we skipped a flat 2, skipped a regular 2, and our next note that when we basically skipped one in the scale, which automatically skips one of the intervals that's not in the scale. But we went to a C, which is a minor third, which creates a minor chord. Why is it a minor third? Because there's only 2 notes in between A and C. Where between C and E, C, D, E, there's actually 3 notes. C sharp, D flat, D, D sharp, E flat, E. And that's because if you see here, we're right in between notice there's a missing black key between A and C. So that chord A was A, C, E. Now what did we just say C was? C, E, G. So what were the same two notes for both chords? That never even changed. Only one note of those chords changed. We had C, E, G, and then we had A, C, E. One note changed. One bass note changed, and it changed the whole flavor of the chord. Of course, the relationship between A and C created a minor chord sound, and the relationship between C and E created the interval relationship. Between those created the major sound. So it just goes to the point is that it doesn't take much to change the flavor of the scale. So all you need to know as the guitarist is the major scale. Let the background chords, let the bass player, let the YouTube backing track, let the keyboard player create the modal sound for you, and you just know where to mount your scale. So that's where I'm going to leave you today. It's the same old teaching, but hopefully I was able to guide a beginner through it, and I can link to this video as the very last broadcast with the screen that shows me and my guitar neck that you could barely see because I don't hold it in front of the camera properly. E major. Anyways, so you can get good at calling out your scales like that, playing them all over, and know how to turn them into modes or modal jams. You know, then it's up to you to if the you can create your own lines by let's say it's just a steady vamp in E, and you want to be an E Lydian. It can all sound pretty random. So what I was doing there in the lines was going over chord shapes. So that's where the lines took a little bit of interest and maybe didn't sound as noodly as just randomly going anywhere. But what will happen is also though you'll just listen to what you're playing, and your ear will develop even to the point where you'll know what the next note starts. Well, at first I didn't even know, like if I hit this note, what's it gonna sound like? Well, just go for it and see. If it was in the scale, it would sound cool and okay. Sometimes I would listen back to myself and see, boy, that's cool, but it's rambling. There's something about this jam that doesn't have any cohesion. It's just me fumbling through notes, and sounded okay, but there could have been some more to it, and there seems to be something in other people's solos that I'm not getting, and that's because they're stringing together chord tones. If there's no structure, then you can just do whatever. You can make your own chord patterns, like a 2-5-1. You can outline a 2-5-1. You can outline a 3-6-2-5. You can outline a 1, a 4, and a 5, because those kind of go together commonly in music. Or you could really listen to the changes and try to follow them. And if your ear's not that developed yet, know the changes. Say that there's some background chords kind of happening, even though, like, the bass player's thumping the second note of the scale, the D, so it's D Dorian. The keyboard, while he keeps going back to that D minor chord, has got some kind of other chords happening on the way. Then you can follow those chords, try to learn what those chords are, listen to it a few times, and then arpeggiate those as you go. When you're arpeggiating a chord, you've got 3 notes, perhaps even 4, that you're playing that are in the chord. That really leaves you with 3 stepping stones. Or let's say you're only gonna choose 2, the 3rd and the 7th of that particular chord. The 1 is just going to be the root. It's going to sound very consonant. The 5 is going to sound like a good note to go to. But on the way there, you can use stepping stones. You have 3 stepping stones, which are the other notes in the scale. It sounds good sometimes to take a note of a scale, step away, step back. David Gilmour does that in a few solos. So, it really depends on how much time you have. Also, try to work your lines over the changes. Many times, you can actually just sit there and study some of the changes. So let's say I'll use Comfortably Numb as an example. In the first solo, that's a chord tone solo, but it's not only just a chord tone solo. Gilmour is playing what's called over the changes or through the changes. Pretty much over the changes. What that means is he's connecting his lines. He's connecting the chords. And you still might not know, well, what the hell does that mean? And this is what it is. He did it so simply, it's like it flies right over everybody's head, because I'd heard it a million times. I've heard jazz guitar instructors try to explain this to me, and I kind of got it, sort of got it. And it's been staring at me in the face in my favorite solo this whole time for years and years. Here it is. And that solo we've got starts with a D. These are the chords. Okay, so it's all in my head now. So, in the very beginning, he's got a D going to an A. So he starts with that note. Well, that's an octave up from a note right in the scale. He basically goes to the... So what note is that? That's the F sharp, so D, F sharp, A, right? So that's the 3rd, and he's suspending it, going to the 4. So he just took the 3rd, which is a great note to start on whenever you're soloing. Look for the 3rd of the chord if you want to be on the money. Third of the chord, suspended, the fourth, back to the third. So it's like a stepping stone. Then he goes to this note, the D. But he immediately bends that D up because we're going to the A. And that D note isn't in the A, but it's in the D chord. So you can start there, but you bend it up. You start there because you're going to be in a little trouble if you hit that D note when the A chord comes up. So that perks the listener's ear up and they'll be like, you started there, and that gives them a half second to go, uh-oh, Gilmore's about to screw this one up. And he goes, well, guess what the E is in the A chord? A, C, E. It's the 5. So he bends to the 5. He bends to a nice consonant, trouble-free note of that chord. The third is a little bit of the third is the money note. So he goes for the money note in the beginning. But now he just needs a consonant note. And also, I believe between those two chords, between D major and A major, the closest notes, let's write it down on paper just to be sure here. D, F sharp, A. Okay, we've already used up that F sharp. So now we're getting to A, C, E. Well, I could have played that A, but that might have been a little lame. Let's see. Because of that bendiness he did there, a bend just goes better with it. And then arpeggiates the chord by stepping out into that 3 to 4 thing again. Yeah, so it's just basically when he bends that D into the E, he could have used A, but A is too basic. He bends that D into the E. We go from a root to a 5 as the chord changes. He releases it. Now he's on that 4th, which still isn't a bad place to be on that A, C, E. E, A, C. But then he goes back to that D, because right there he ran out of time and the chord is switched to D. Same thing again. Just riding the chord tones down to G. Alright, I got sleepy, so I want to go on all night. This has been a very hard decision for me to leave the my empire here for my guitar channel, my office, not have any office, live out of hotel rooms and a van. But it had to be done. I'll be saving more money than I ever have, and that should facilitate me eventually getting another place to live, something maybe that I can call my own, maybe something in a state that's not so highly taxed as New York, and hopefully they have as good of internet as we do over here. So I got a nice, super high speed connection that I'm sad to leave. That's another reason I want to keep broadcasting, because just got this rock solid fiber optic that keeps on kicking. Green light networks for all those people in Rochester waiting for them to come to your neighborhood. It's hard to say shut her down and shut off, but here I go. That was the brings us to the end of the broadcast there. From there, knowing your modes and everything else, you start to know your chords. The other day, I picked up the guitar and I played a 6 chord, and then I played another 6 chord, and I thought that they sounded good together, and then I saw how they were potentially could be considered part of the same scale, and I said, let me write that down on graph paper to see if they really do show up in the same scale, and they did, and I ended up harmonizing the whole major scale in a 6 chord. Did it sound all that musical? I didn't think so, but it was still interesting that that might come up though in some songs someday. That's the type of thing that I just keep on doing. Once I learned a little bit of music theory and I learned how to use graph paper to help me out, the musical ideas just keep coming. And it hasn't stopped. In 3 or 4 years that I've known this stuff, I'm always thinking of something new. In the middle of driving, wanting to write something down because I'm like, hey, I think that makes sense. And sometimes being able to think of it right in my head because I've got some of this stuff fully memorized now, because it was now easy to memorize, easier than the type of graphs and big chunks of scales that I was taught as a beginner that didn't have any connection to one another. So everything seemed to be a different place to memorize, and you had to know which one of these 7 places you were at any given time. So my brain is trying to toggle 7 bits of complex memory. It could never really do that. I'm just not that person. When I turned it all into one piece of memory, the box with some add-ons, it all became second nature to me. So hopefully it does that to you too. Thank you, anybody. I think I got 1 watcher, so that was pretty cool. It's pretty typical. You can leave a comment really quick. We're about to shut her down, but I want to thank each of my 786 subscribers that got me to 786 subscribers. Without you, the channel wouldn't have continued. I wouldn't have continued these type of discussions. So I'm really grateful and really thankful for everybody that made this channel happen. I don't know the future of it, if I'm going to ever add anything to it again. I think I am, but I know from the past year in this van, I can't guarantee it until perhaps maybe I leave it up until I get another place. So I might stay up for a couple years, and suddenly I'm back, making a new announcement, got a new studio. Here we are, we're back, type of thing. So look for that in the coming weeks or probably years. So that's what I think is going to happen. I don't think I'm going to delete it. If I did delete the channel, that would kind of suck. I think it would also leave the door open for anybody to plagiarize my material and call it their own. Not that it's that, trademarky or that much my own. I'm sure other people have found this method long before I did, or will claim they did. There will be those people too. I put it out here on YouTube because I looked around. I haven't seen anybody teach it this way until recently. I see some people that either caught on or just found their own way to describe it like this. This leaves room for people to just plagiarize my site, so I think I guess I'm gonna leave it up. And yeah, I guess I don't know. Maybe I just can't keep going in my van. I don't. I guess we don't know the future, but we do know this is going away. My picture-in-picture, because I can't get that to happen with the laptop in the van unless I tinker around a bit. It's a nice laptop. Maybe I'll get OBS on there, and maybe I'll bring these cameras with me. I don't know, and see if I can set them up from time to time in the van. Here it is. Here's what makes this happen. Look at that cheap setup. It's this, hey, second person watching, I appreciate it. You got the end of the jam, or the end of the video here, where I'm just showing the basics of, was to set this up with PVC pipe. And that camera there checks out the graph paper there. This camera here is what I used to shoot with. It's a regular room. Regular apartment room, boiler heat. Everything's empty and bare. Like I said, I'm moving out. So, but there's the background behind me. But I'm losing all that to continue this career as a van driver. And if something happens with that, the trouble is, I'm going to be hard-pressed to find another, unless this is still available, and I doubt it. I think it's going to go right away, but I don't know. It's the city, and I wasn't really too keen on moving to the city, although I'll tell you a little thing that happened here. While I was here, especially 2 years ago, some college, a nice rental across the street, some people moved out of it, and it turned into a college rental, and it was just nonstop noise. It was really annoying living here around that much noise. People were playing ball in the street all the time, and people were telling them not to. They're claiming that they won't hit any cars, and the ball was bouncing off cars left and right. It was really, really something. I had people, I saw them shooting a BB gun one day off their top terrace, and I know it hit a couple of bits of my car, and but I could never prove it, so no good. Made me want to get out of here. Plus a few other incidents. It's the city of Rochester, New York, like all cities, is got some problems at night, and not necessarily the safest place to be. Although my apartment and my neighborhood are reasonably okay, it's the Park Avenue neighborhood. So, that being said, made me want to move out. I haven't been around for the last 2 years because I've been away for months at a time in this van. And still, though, they had this, rowdy college, thing going on. But luckily I missed all of it. I happened to be away in the van while everything just kind of sat here in the apartment. A squirrel got in one time. The landlords had to tell me a squirrel got in. They chewed on a guitar case. Luckily the guitars were safe, but they almost destroyed my computer. They ruined my kitchen. It was just the crazy things would happen. Luckily nobody broke in. But that being said, now that I decided to move out, so did the kids across the street. They've graduated college. What do you know? Well, guess who's moving in? I talked to the landlords the other day because it looked like they destroyed the place, and I was saying, no, how did you do? How great was it renting to those, cost effective was it renting to those kids? And he said, yeah, they destroyed the place, but I've got some college girls moving in now, which may destroy the place too. But the point is, And I just saw this two, 3 or 4 places around here are going up for rent. And I swear to God, every single one of them is getting loaded with college girls. It's a sausage fest while I live here. And now I move, and it's girls galore. I can't win. I can't win. Where am I going? Anyways, with my old ass. But that's all I'll leave you with today. Thank you for my 2 watchers. Hopefully you can rewind and check out. If you're a beginner, I think you'll really enjoy what we went through start to finish here. If you already know some basics of music theory, it's going to be everything you already knew, and just another waste of time. So, as you can hear, my voice is going. I got to get off of this thing and get this place, get the computer loaded in the van, and get the hell out of here so I can get it loaded into a storage area, because I may be flying tomorrow. I told work it would be best if it could be Monday, but they need to make money too, so they might try to get me into something on Saturday, which would be unfortunate, but it will be the way it is. So thank you for watching, everybody. This is Marco, Mind's Eye Visual Guitar Method, signing out in this particular studio for the last time. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it.